Welcome to Encyclopedia, the channel where we explore historic events from the people who were actually involved, at the same time debunking myths and misinformation. Please like, share, subscribe, comment, and hit that notification bell. Let's get into part 3 of Success Breeds Silence, Reliving Jackson Family Abuse Claims. In this last part of the series, we can gather this is the house divided, and after so many shows and interviews, the frustration of determining who's lying and who's telling the truth rises. As we close this segment, we know this will only lead to much bigger claims that will shift the attention. Let's get into it.
New revelations fill Jermaine's new book, You Are Not Alone. The moment he first heard of 4-year-old Michael singing Jingle Bells. The time Michael confided his feelings about Joe Jackson, the disciplinarian father they called Joseph.
Michael asks you, would you cry if Joseph died? What did Michael say after he asked you that question?
He said he don't know if he would or he wouldn't.
You said you were haunted by the screams of Michael the first time he was hit by your father with a switch.
Not so much of petrified, but just the excitement of him not understanding what it means. He wanted to show us, I care about you. Even if I have to whip your butt, I care about you. I'm gonna keep you off those streets.
I had read a quote from your husband manager, Jay. He said you were repeatedly raped and that you're a very sad woman because of it. Is that a fair?
Well, at a young age, my father engaged in that with me when I was much younger. As I got older, no, because he could go out and get any girl he wanted. Right. However, sexually, verbally, it continued. He would say terrible things to me if we were alone in the room. You know you want this, come over here and get it. Things like that he would say to me as I was older, but younger. Children don't have a lobby, so we can't say no, but as an adult, we have a choice to say yes or no. But even as an adult, I couldn't say no when he said things like that because my parents were so strict that we weren't allowed to really say no or anything, so I just had to listen to him talk to me like this, and I'll dare walk out the room. He'd grab me and beat me if I were to walk out the room while he's talking to me, so I just had to take these things from him.
You also probably still wanted his approval, which is what I've heard a lot of incest survivors say. No matter what he did to you, you still wanted him to love you.
Well, he was my father. I didn't really know this man. No one actually knew him. None of my siblings really knew him. I think they know him more today and better today than they did back then.
Have you talked to Rebe about this, to any of your siblings about this since this happened? Did they know this was going on?
Well, Rebe definitely, because we slept in the same bed, so she knew I knew about her. And eventually Rebe and I spoke about it, and we talked about it on the phone. And she asked me a question, and she says, LaToya, I want you to be very honest with me. She says, I've been away from home for years. This is almost, I think, 20 years now. She's been away from home for years, and she says, I've watched your behavior. I notice you stay in your room. You're very quiet. When Joseph, we call her father Joseph. When Joseph walks in the room, you walk out. She says, please answer me this question. Did he sexually molest you the way he did me? And I was so embarrassed. I couldn't answer her. I just said, Rebe, there's certain things you just don't talk about, isn't there? And she just said, okay, then did he do it to Janet? And I said, I can't speak for Janet. You have to ask her, which, in fact, I can't speak for her. But later on, I realized that I probably shouldn't. It's probably wrong of me, but I started blaming Rebe because if she knew this, why didn't she come and try to save me sooner if she knew this was going on? Why did she wait 20 years to come up and ask me this question? Not that I'm blaming her, but it's just that why let a man do this to me? And she knew about it.
Good girl, because you didn't want to rock the boat. You didn't want to...
I didn't want to do anything wrong, no.
You wanted to be good. You wanted maybe not to be noticed.
Well, you had to understand my father. My father was a very mean man. He wasn't a nice person at all. And you couldn't do anything right. You couldn't say anything right, no matter what. So I remained silent. I didn't say one word. I was very quiet and very shy.
You disciplined your kids. Do you think parents today are too soft on their children? Do you think there's a lack of respect because of that?
Yeah, they are too soft. One of the reasons I say that is because kids nowadays are killing their parents in some cases, and the parents say, let's get into this beating thing. There's no such thing as beating a kid. You whip them and punish them for something they did, and they will remember that. So they remember it in such a way they wouldn't do it again. That's the way I was.
It's not like that anymore. You know, many people say, well, you know, you can't hit a child. I interviewed your wife, Catherine, and she said this about you.
I didn't think he was too tough, but back in those days, everybody raised their children about the same. If you did something wrong, it was terribly wrong, you got a scolding for it, and you also got a licking, as they called it. But today you can't do that. So Michael looked back at those times, and they said he was abused.
You know, in those days, kids was real bad, and the parents should have made sure, what I did, made sure that my kids was good kids. Made sure that they understood what I was trying to do. But since Michael got grown and has kids of his own, he understand what I was going through with.
Latoya, I've been reading your book the last couple of days, and I'm very much impressed. Let me tell you that. Because after reading it, I thought, what the hell did they do to you? What the hell did your father do to you? He abused you. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about that.
Well, as you know from reading the book, there was a lot of abuse in the family. There was not only physical and emotional abuse, but there was also sexual abuse. And I think this is something that needs to be addressed to the world, to the public, to let people know that sexual abuse is wrong, and we should put a stop to it. My father was a very abusive person, and I think he didn't know how to control it, or he didn't know or realize what he was doing. He did lots of things. He would beat us constantly. He would take guns and put them to our heads and pull the trigger all the time until the day I left home. He would take matches and burn our toes, and he would laugh, and we couldn't do anything. Because if you would say no or whatever when you were asleep and he's burning your toes, he would beat you. So you'd have to stay there and just take the pain and not do anything.
What kind of man is this?
Well, I think he's mentally deranged, don't you?
I agree with you.
I think he's mentally disturbed. I don't think that...
But still, Latoya, you stayed with your parents till you were 30 years old. Why didn't you...
Till I was 29, yes, a very long time.
Why didn't you get out of the house sooner?
I made several attempts to leave. And, you know, you can ask me this question. Yes, of course. I made several attempts to leave. But I never could leave because my father would always say, wherever you go, I'm going to find you and bring you back home. And my mother was sort of like the silent partner. And she would always say, but it's not good for you to be out there alone. You're a girl and someone can follow you and follow you home, and it's very dangerous. But as you asked me that question...
So you terrorized the whole family in a way, didn't you?
Everybody. I was basically next to the last to leave home. Michael left home 1 week after I did. And you could say, why did he stay? He could have left as well, but he didn't.
He not only did terrible things to you with matches and things like that, but he also sexually abused you.
Yes.
You want to talk about that?
Yes, I don't want to get graphic with it, but yes, it was quite terrible. He would abuse my sister. We slept in the same bed, and he would sexually abuse her. He would come into the bed constantly, and I was right there in the same bed. And my mother would allow it to happen. She would say to him sometimes, Joe, not tonight. She's tired, don't bother her. And I would be right there in the bed, and I would keep the covers over my head because I would hear my sister fighting and screaming. And she asked my mother to go to a psychiatrist and get a psychiatrist for him, but she said no, not at all. So my sister left home at a very young age, and when she left home, then my father started sexually abusing me.
Who do you hate more? Your father who did these things to you or your mommy?
I don't like to use the word hate.
I can imagine that you hate somebody who does that to you.
It's a wrong word to use, I think, this word hate. But I know that I should. Most people tell me that. Psychologists tell me that I should hate. But my mother, yes. Because my father was disturbed. I think any man who sexually abused his daughter, something is wrong right here. But nothing was wrong with my mother, and she allowed him to do these things. It's very wrong. You don't allow your husband to sexually abuse your children like this.
In general, Latoya, is it possible for you, after everything that happened to you, to have a normal relationship, not only sexual, but with a man? Difficult question?
Yes, it's a difficult question.
The answer is no, I think.
No, it's just a difficult question. It's
Why didn't you sue him? Get him to court.
It won't do any good because if I should do this to my father, then he will go directly to jail. I don't believe my father belongs in jail. I think that he belongs into a mental hospital. I think he needs to be treated therapy for what he's done. He doesn't need to be in prison, no.
This is not a punishment for him and for your mother.
No, this book is to reach out to other people who've been abused, and I want them to speak out the minute it happens to them and not wait for years because it's very, very bad. Mentally, it's not good for you because you live with this anger and this fear inside of you, and it's not healthy for your system. So I think anybody who's ever been abused should speak out and let people know that you're being abused because eventually, what the abuser doesn't know is eventually that person that they're abusing is going to tell on you sooner or later. Maybe not today or tomorrow, but eventually that person will speak out and say, this person abused me.
This book is a bestseller, isn't it? Is it fair to make money out of your own misery?
It's not making money out of my misery. I don't think. I'm approaching other people and letting them speak out. There are a lot of grown women out there who are afraid to speak up and who are embarrassed, and they need to talk about it. This is a subject that's so taboo that we don't want to talk about it, but we need to open up and let the world know that you've been abused so we can put a stop to this because it's very unfair to do that to people. If they want to have sex or do whatever they want to people or children, then go to your red light district and do it. But don't do it to innocent victims. It's wrong.
Your own mother, your own father, saying they would say it to your face that you're a liar, Latoya.
I would love for them to do that more than anything else. I've asked them to do that. I would love to speak to them because they know better. They know the truth.
When was the last time you spoke?
My mother, when I wrote my book, I must say, before I wrote anything about abuse, I asked my mother why my father did this to me because I went to her for help. I wanted to know the answers because I had so many questions. I was so confused, Geraldo. I couldn't sleep at night. I couldn't think. I couldn't do anything properly. And I went to her and said, Mother, please, you must tell me, why did Joseph do this to me? And why did you watch him do this to me? And the answers that she gave me was, Latoya, this is something that you keep in the family and you don't tell anyone else. It stays in the family. It goes nowhere else. I said, but Mother, just tell me why he did this to me. I need to know. She would not tell me. I called again. The next time I called, she says, Latoya, your father did this because he was sick. He didn't realize he was doing these things to you guys when you did it.
Your mother said that?
That's exactly what she told me. Then I spoke to her again, and then she tells me my father doesn't recall any of this, and she says, and neither do you, so forget it. And if you mention it, I'll say you're a liar, and the whole world will believe that you're a liar. And that's exactly what she's doing today.
We would be honored if you would join us.